we push OK on this?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to open the PUD Water Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 17th. And I guess I'll turn it over to staff. What you got for us, guys?
I'll open it up. So good morning. Thank you for attending this meeting. While consolidation isn't new to TUD, we've done nothing but consolidate over the decades of our existence, but we really haven't had a consolidation, I think, since 2007. I can't remember. It's been a while since we've had a Curtis Creek. Oh yeah, Curtis Creek. That was I'm sorry, we did have one. So while it's not new, it's rare, and so your staff has been involved for probably a year now in a few consolidation studies and thoughts. So at some point, I knew that it should come to the board for consideration and or a committee. So I felt like in a couple of situations like these two here, it's at a point where I think it was important to bring it to the committee just to give you the information you need today. And we're not going to make any decisions today. This is just bringing you information to get you up to speed, see what we've done over the last year or so. So you've got staff here to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Well, I'd like to just point out we do have a few folks online. Mindy is with GHD. Thanks, Mindy. And I'll explain her role. Also,
who is GHD?
I'll explain.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, Taylor Bell, who works with Mindy with GHD. She's on. You just can't see her up there. I'm going to go ahead and share screen here and just kind of get you guys oriented on where we are in the world. And let's see here. And I'm going to. Yeah. All right. Okay. So these are the stakeholders. I just want to bring this up because this can get very confusing if it's the first time you've heard anything about this. So we've got a couple of players involved in this project. The first being the Division of Financial Assistance, which we call DFA. You guys have heard that term many times. They're the funding agency. Division of Drinking Water, acronym DDW, the regulatory agency. GHD, I'm sorry, Mindy, I have the wrong last name. I don't know what I was thinking, but Mindy Curran and Taylor Bell are with GHD. They're the engineering consultant. They were hired by the Division of Financial Assistance to provide technical assistance to the park owner, which is Integrity Community Solutions. Jessica Preston, she may or may not join us. She was invited. And then of course, TUD is the utility owner provider. The way it generally works is we didn't initiate this process. The mobile home park owner reached out in some form to the state. And I think when there was an ownership change, it triggered a need to evaluate potential consolidation. And the Division of Financial Assistance has a funding program for technical assistance for small water systems. And so they executed with one of their preferred providers, which is GHD, they executed an agreement funding this project. Division of Drinking Water is very interested in this because their goal is to eliminate a permitted water system. Or right now, Sonora Estates is its own permitted water system regulated by DDW. They would like, to see if the alternatives work out, that system to be absorbed into the Columbia water supply permit so that they wouldn't have to regulate the park and they would be under TUD. So. All right, so where are we? South Airport Road. We're all locals here, but South Airport Road out in Columbia. The water service area for TUD is this purple area, and I want to credit GHD. A lot of these came right out of their report, so thank you, Mindy and Taylor. And I could have done a better job in the image quality, so I apologize if it's a little grainy. But anyway, you can see this. This is Sonora Estates right here. It's surrounded by TUD's treated water system. But like I said, it's its own water system. It has, I've heard 80, I think it's 87 service connections, max day demand of about 28 gallons a minute. They satisfy that with 2 wells and a tank, a bolted steel tank. They don't have any primary or secondary MCL violations to my knowledge, but as we all know, it's difficult to operate and maintain a small water system with a limited customer base. You know, if Jessica was here, she could speak to their interest in pursuing consolidation.
Now, before you move on, if you don't mind, is the purple area that is TUD, is that where we have current service, but it's not representative of our sphere of influence?
That's correct.
So this is just where we have existing service?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
However, it's well within our sphere of influence.
Well, within, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sphere of influence.
That's what my point is.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct. This is just a picture right out of GHD's report of the park. It just gives you a flavor of what we're talking about here. And what you can't see is South Airport Road's over here. You kind of come into the park like this. One of the wells is over here. This is just, you know, to depict how their system works. They have 2 wells. They're metered, and then they fill up the storage tank, and then go out to their system. This is just give you again a flavor of their system. I want to emphasize that all of the alternatives that GHD is analyzing don't have us owning, operating, maintaining any of the infrastructure you see here. But that is their tank on the hill, and there's the electrical service and some of the controls for their pump. This is really hard to see, and I don't intend you to get a whole lot out of this, but basically there are 3 alternatives, and Mindy could explain if we need to in more detail, but there's always the do nothing alternative. Under that scenario, the park would just continue to operate as its own permitted water system. Then there is a master meter consolidation option. We do have right here, TUD has, which is essentially across the street from the entrance to the park. We have a water main, and it has sufficient pressure. It actually has more pressure than is really needed for the park. So one scenario would be to connect in right there and then run a new water main into the park. We could have a master meter, you know, out toward the entrance of the park, and a pressure reducing station. And under this scenario, you know, the park would still be required to operate and maintain their own distribution system, but they could get rid of their tank and they could get rid of their wells, and they would no longer be a permitted water system. So it would be under TUD's Columbia water system at that point. Fire flow could be improved, and so it would basically take away any vulnerabilities they have on supply and on storage.
Is there any hydrants in the park itself, fire hydrants?
I think they said they had some standpipes. They don't really consider them
They're higher hydrants, but they do have some standpipes or wharf beds, I believe.
Yeah, and Mindy, feel free to raise your hand. I'll try to monitor that if there's anything you want to add to this. This is right on, she does.
I'm on.
Oh, you are, thank you.
Currently, there are a few of the wharf hydrants on site, so they're not full-size hydrants. But as part of either of the alternatives where we're doing consolidation, we would be installing full-size hydrants inside the park.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Mindy. So that's, you know, that's one scenario is the master meter. The other scenario is the full consolidation, which would really involve replacement of the entire distribution system with new service laterals and new meters to each of the homes in the park. So that, you know, has its own cost estimate, and then the master meter has its own cost estimate. Under all scenarios, the project includes payment of capacity charges. And I think I included in the report, the staff report here, an estimate of what we think the capacity charges would be. I think Antonio based it on 80, maybe not 87 connections. But under a master meter scenario, it's about $540,000 capacity charge. That is our current charge. And what that funds is the capacity that would be consumed in our water supply system. You know, we have to bring water all the way through the canal system. Capacity at Columbia, the water treatment plant, and then the storage tank that would serve this area is actually the clear well at the treatment plant. And then a master meter, assuming, I think we assumed a 4-inch master meter, yeah, would be based on current demands about $3,700 a month. The other scenario, full consolidation, capacity charge would be about $600,000, and each home in the park would then pay a water bill directly to TUD. So we would be, you know, responsible to bill them directly, and their average water bill would probably be somewhere around $107 a month. Estimated usage. So at this point, you know, we don't have any action that we're requesting from the committee. We just, like Dawn said, we just wanted to bring you up to speed. The process at this point is for Mindy and her team to finalize the alternatives analysis. And then I believe if the preferred alternative involves some form of consolidation, master meter or full consolidation, there would be an additional funding agreement or an amendment to their agreement with Division of Financial Assistance for them to prepare 4 packets. There's a general packet, a financial packet, a technical packet, and an environmental, did I say environmental? Environmental and financial, sorry. So those packets all need to be submitted to the state, and then you basically wait. Who knows how long for the funding to come. So we're, you know, potentially years away from any construction out there, but that would be the process. And then if we were to actually go down that road, it would require board approval to be an applicant and a recipient of the funding, and probably an agreement that we would provide water service to the park, either master meter, or we would be willing to consolidate. So those are steps farther down the road.
So how much are they paying right now for their water?
Right now, they are completely separate from TUD.
So you don't even
And I
know.
don't know, yeah. Mindy, do you know how they bill their water in the park?
Yeah, so Sonora Estates is a metered system, and so they're currently billing based on usage within the park. I think the average water bill is like around $60, and so in either in either consolidation scenario, we think that their individual water bill would go up. In a full consolidation scenario, when each individual customer is billing TUD directly, that's looking like probably the highest type of water bill. But there are so many other benefits for them to consolidate that I think that they are looking beyond the fact that their water bill would increase.
So they already have established meters, but we're gonna replace them if we take it on? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I don't think we've reviewed their meters, but it's highly unlikely that they meet our standards, our remote read meter standards.
So, that's your presentation, basically?
That's it.
Okay, so, fellow committee member,
Yes.
do you have any other questions or thoughts?
Well, I've given them my questions.
Okay.
So you think that they're gonna, Mindy, you think that they're going to approve it even if with the raise in the water rates? And it's not gonna be based on usage, it's just gonna be a flat rate?
No, so under the consolidation options, in a master meter scenario where the park is paying TUD just for usage based on a single large meter, the park is going to have to recuperate those fees from its residents in their own way internally, right? So just for example, like TUD would send out a bill to Sonora Estates, a single bill, it'd be for $5,000, and the park would need to recuperate that from its residents because they're not going to be, or they wouldn't be a water system. They would no longer be able to bill based on usage. So what we see in that case is they would bill through a rate increase in rent or, somehow internally. In a full consolidation scenario where TUD would be billing each individual customer, we would have the meters replaced for two reasons. The first reason being that to keep TUD's system fully and intact and similar to itself, which makes operation and maintenance easier for TUD. And then also the meters that are on site are already aged. And so the objective is to not pass on aged infrastructure to TUD that would cause issues for them later. And so we've been very careful about what gets left, and really there would be nothing left under full consolidation. We would be replacing all of the pipe in the ground in the park. We'd be adding the necessary fire hydrants, and then of course like the new connection in the meter would be new also. In master meter, the park would still get some upgrades because they're very incapable of supplying adequate fire flow right now. But in master meter, the park would be responsible for maintaining everything on site. And so, yeah, I think with as many leaks as they're facing right now with their aged distribution system, they're willing to look beyond the increase in the bill.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, so, what's staff's thoughts on this situation? Or are you just neutral, whatever the board kind of suggests, or do you have some valid viewpoints?
I'm kind of neutral. I think we've gone through both scenarios or all scenarios, and we've done some hydraulic modeling, found that we can supply the fire flow that they're looking for or that they need, which is 1,000 gallons a minute, whether that's through a master meter or through through a brand new distribution system. I think that they've expressed that they would love to, of course, get a brand new distribution system. That is because of the aging infrastructure and the leaks that they're putting up with right now. So if they are gonna have continual leaks, there's gonna be, I guess, somewhat of an impact to us if we go through a master meter and they do have leaks. So brand new infrastructure, although then that responsibility ultimately lies on us to maintain a brand new distribution system. So, I could go either way, neutral with it.
Will the cost be higher if you guys redo their infrastructure?
All the costs for the upgrades to meet the requirements for us to even consider consolidating them would be funded externally, either through a grant or partially through their own funds.
So, if we were to do a master meter, how would the billing, work? Is that gonna be like a just a flat rate each month, or is it gonna be by consumption, or how does that work?
Well, and I think Mindy was alluding to this, so we would bill based on whatever that master meter reads.
Okay,
And so it would be based on consumption, our bill to the park owner, that
Right.
single bill.
right.
But how they will bill internally in the
Well,
park.
we wouldn't care at that
We
point.
would, that's right.
I wanna make it more clear, right? So with the bill to a master meter would have a base component and a volumetric component.
Yes, it would.
So two components
Okay.
to make up one $5,000 bill to go to them. And how they divvy it up is up to them.
Yeah, right, okay.
And there would only be one master meter for the whole park.
Correct.
So, there's no action to be taken today, but I would like this discussion to go before the full board. I think every board member should be educated on this, because, I doubt if this is gonna be the first one. So I think that having a board that is up to speed on it and understands it, and everybody's in lockstep with staff, that we'd be in much better shape. Okay, well, I do have a few comments as usual. That used to be Roll-In Mobile Home Park. And it was family owned for years. And we're gonna run into this time and time again with these other mobile home parks throughout. This is from the Wild West days. Anything goes, and anything did go. Unbelievably, their sewer system back when, not that long ago, was a couple of ponds. And that's where all the sewage went. The last thing I would want to expose our construction crew to is going in and digging up and installing a whole new water system. You have no idea what's underneath those roads out there. The owner had his own backhoe. The family members did their own installations. You have no idea what is underneath what little pavement or whatever is out there, gravel or whatever. So my thoughts is there's no way in hell I want to see TUD take on the full replacement of the system. We'll run a meter up to the property line, and thank you very much. That's as far as we should go. That's my opinion. The other thing is, mobile home parks are notorious for having, once you roll your mobile home in there and set it up, that sucker ain't never coming up. If you think you're gonna, if you get in a tussle with the owner over rent space, and you think you're just gonna hook your mobile home up and drag it out, that ain't happening. So what you would expose our staff to, can you imagine the billing mess of, I mean, we have enough trouble right now with bills that are in arrears and things like that, or with renters moving and owing. What do you've got nothing to attach out there. And a lot of those homes that are there, I don't know now because I don't have any experience in a number of years of being out there, but back when, there was a bunch of junk that was in place out there. It would be considered substandard housing today. Aluminum wiring, things like that. You've got nothing, if the bill goes in arrears, you have nothing to attach, nothing. We go to the property line and that's it, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that was insightful. I hadn't really given a lot of that any consideration. But some of the challenges I see are the distribution system is in shambles.
That's their problem.
It's leaking, right? But it's our water, right? And in times of drought, that could be a problem, right?
How much of that is, I mean, to save that amount of water, how much disaster are you gonna place on our staff and our
Listen, I
ratepayers?
agree. I didn't disagree with you.
Right.
You brought up some very good points that I hadn't considered. I'm just giving you my thoughts.
Right, okay.
That was, my thoughts were before you enlightened me a little bit. So I would be fearful that a decade down the road, this is no longer acceptable to have, because I don't think the park can afford to repair their distribution system and replace it. It's unaffordable, period. So it's not gonna get any better. It will get worse. It will leak more and more. And someday, all this is gonna have to happen. Now, when I say all this, that distribution is gonna have to be brought up to speed. And I don't know whose challenge that will be in a decade from now. But those were my thoughts. And the other last thing I'll say is, if there's one volumetric charge, 80 customers, some customers use the bare bones minimum and some customers use a whole bunch, well, then they got that challenge too, so.
But that's, once again, their problem. You know, this is typical of what has happened across America as a whole. This is what we're finally coming to realize. There has been millions of dollars made out there at Roland Mobile Park. The family that owned that was rich. And it didn't come from doing anything other than just charging those renters the space. That infrastructure was just put in there just to get by. You know, let's make a buck, just patch it, get it over with, let's move on. Well, our ratepayers didn't do that, and I don't want them to have to pay to fix what should have been fixed by the people that made all the money. So.
But the people that bought the park were aware of the insufficiencies of the infrastructure at the time. Is that why you've been in the discussions? Because the people who purchased it from the original owners, they were aware that the infrastructure wasn't good?
I think they are definitely aware of that. I don't know the chain of title, how many times it's transferred, but yeah, I mean, Jessica isn't on, but she's acutely aware of how poor the infrastructure is, and they manage or own parks all over the place, so they're not new to this situation. But can I ask a pointed question, Ron, because I hear you, like Don said, you kind of enlightened us on a few topics. I do want to clarify that if the distribution system was totally replaced, it wouldn't be by TUV crews. The costs that GHD has estimated involve hiring a contractor to do all of that work. Just so that you know, TUV crews won't be digging in there. But the other your point about attaching, you mean like placing a lien, right? So I wonder if there is a way to also lien the park owner, because I don't know if you own your spot, your space.
You don't, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
So I wonder if you can lien the park owner if you can't collect on the actual.
Can I interject here? Do they have just rental mobile homes, or are they owned by the people
They're
living in?
owned by, well, I don't know to this day, but it used to be, usually a mix. It was a mix. Some people owned their mobile home, but rented the spot. Other people rented the spot with the mobile home on it, that the park. That's the other thing. See, this is what happens. This is where they make their money. When the person that owns the unit finally can't take it anymore, you can't haul it out. It's worthless, really. It costs you more to move it out and where you're gonna move it to. The park ends up owning it.
Right.
Now it becomes a rental. So it's a double win-win for the park owner. And that's what I'm saying. It's not just the crew going out and getting involved in the infrastructure and everything that might be, all the uglies underground and all that. It is, what are you gonna expose our poor girls out front to with all these individual renters that don't pay their bill, move out? How, you're gonna multiply that by our mess right now by 100,000. We don't need that. It has to be on the park. If they wanna make big bucks off this and all that, then they get to have the, go through the leap through the rings of fire in order to make that big bucks.
I wish Jessica was here because she could really speak to what she mentioned at one of the previous meetings that their goal is to change the ownership structure, I believe, so that it becomes like a cooperative, like each resident out there is a partial owner in this. And I don't know the ownership model, what the name of that is, but it's a little different approach to ownership and maintenance of mobile home parks. So anyway, if she jumps on, because the next item is also involves her, if she jumps on, maybe we can circle back to your concern and ask her directly to
Can you
respond.
do that even though it's not on the agenda?
It's on the agenda. Yeah, it's on the table.
So we should also find out if they're rentals.
What's not on the agenda? You lost me.
Water being in the sewer committee meeting.
Oh, no, Peppermint Creek Water
Is also
on the agenda.
In the sewer?
No,
We're not
water.
talking sewer, we're only talking water.
I know that. He's talking about in the next committee meeting, sewer.
no, I mean in the next item. I'm sorry.
If she jumps on this meeting,
If she jumps
in
on this
time,
yeah.
while we're talking about Peppermint Creek,
Okay,
she's over the same one, I guess.
yeah,
Correct.
no, I get it.
And we should know whether their rentals are owned, because you can always put liens against them if they're owned by
Does
people.
Mindy happen to know?
So sorry, I cannot figure out how to raise my hand in Zoom.
Like that.
There you go. We utilize Teams, and so Zoom is a foreign meeting space for me. So the ownership, it used to be that the ownership of Sonora and Peppermint, they were private owners, and then at some point, they were bought by a group called Harmony Communities. And then Sonora has since changed ownership again to Integrated Community Solutions, which is what Jessica works for. Harmony Communities continues to own Peppermint. So when we started these projects about a year ago, like just starting discussions, the parks were owned by the same people, but now they are owned by two different groups. As far as Sonora goes, Integrated Community Solutions, who Jessica works for, their objective is to not own the park in perpetuity. Their objective is to go in and help the residents become independent, as Eric was describing, and then they release ownership. And they have successfully been doing this across California. Peppermint is owned by Harmony Solutions, and as far as I know, they are an owner who would be owning the park into perpetuity, right? So as of right now, the parks are kind of on different tracks for ownership style. And then I just wanted to make one note about the distribution system replacement. Currently, the distribution system has a lot of piping that runs like in between the homes, and it's kind of a complicated network. As part of the project, we would be abandoning or removing a lot of those old lines and installing a more simplified system that runs directly through the street network out there. And as part of that, you could, of course, come across whatever surprises are under the road. So.
That it on Sonora? You wanna move to Peppermint Creek?
Sure. I mean, if we're done with that.
I think so. I'm sure you're gonna have the same comment about taking this to the full board as for Peppermint Creek, so it's
Absolutely.
noted, and maybe we'll talk offline as to the timing of that.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll make note of it, get it to the full board.
You agree, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
okay.
The trick is, for me, is, and that's why we work close together, what do I bring to the full board instantly, or do I, you know?
No, this is fine.
Okay,
See, we're breaking the ice, we're having a discussion. Look at the things that just popped up.
Yeah.
This is all stuff that should go to the full board so that they're on, and they may have some thoughts too that might further enlighten us, you know?
Okay.
So,
Cool.
We do currently serve a mobile home park with independent meters, so I'm curious as to how we do that with billing right now.
is that
We should ask some
Sonora
questions.
Hills?
We should get that information and bring it to the board meeting.
Is that Sonora Hills?
Skyline Mobile Home Park
Skyline.
Yeah.
What is
out in
that?
Columbia.
Oh, yeah, okay. Those are on
Skyline.
individual meters, huh? I didn't know that.
The meters are tucked all the way back in that corner of almost all those mobile homes. They come up in a pedestal that has all the utilities.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, okay.
Mhm.
So what about Sonora Hills? That's all in
Sonora Hills
individual?
is- Yeah, that's all individual, and we got a whole distribution system that we actually, a portion of East Sonora relies on the plumbing that goes through it, infrastructure that goes through there, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mobile home parks are like a breed unto themselves. You gotta really be careful because, like I said, the fact that the property is owned by the mobile home park owner, and then the
Space.
dwelling is supposed to be owned by the person that is renting the space, but sometimes it's the rental also.
Yeah.
And this needs to really probably go by Jesse also as far as the billing aspect, to see how that could even possibly keep us out of trouble, because that's why I say that I think it's best that it's left to the park owner, because they can have that nightmare, we don't need it. So what do you got for us on Peppermint Creek?
Well, Mindy,
Well, the
thank you.
purple,
Yeah, and raise your hand and wave if you need to say anything.
all right, but ditto. For my speech, just trying to bring this to the committee for awareness of what's going on, and so.
Yeah, same thing. Here's Peppermint Creek. It's here shown in this, where it's And then you can see the difference here being the other water systems, Sonora Estates, Roland, was surrounded by TUD infrastructure. This would be inside of our sphere of influence, but outside of our current service area, which means that in order to serve this, you either need to come up from the south and extend infrastructure or down from the north.
And there's plenty of pressure and plenty of flow and everything else.
From the north, and that's one thing we'll go into here, but from the north, there's plenty of pressure. From the south, there would need to be some pumping.
We don't like that sound. No.
And there's about 100 service connections. Again, I gotta credit GHD and Mindy with most of this information come out of their report. Currently, we do provide the water supply to the park, as Matt had said. So it comes down through the Table Mountain Ditch and into the O'Neill Reservoir, and then out into the Montezuma Ditch. And the park currently is a raw water customer, and then they pump out of from the ditch up to their treatment facility. And they have a a conventional treatment plant, small, looks like a packaged kind of plant, rated at 66 gallons a minute. And then they have a tank, and then they also have a hydro zone, like a higher pressure zone, because some of the homes are above the treatment plant. Unaware of any primary or secondary MCL violations. But they do struggle with the ditch outage. I don't know if they struggle, but they've got to endure the ditch outage. And they also have occasionally some issues with turbidity. This is just to kind of illustrate how they take water out of the ditch into a tank. It gets pumped up through their treatment system into their clear well, and then there's a pump system for this upper zone, and then the rest is gravity. I think they have maybe 12 fire hydrants, something like that in the park. Picture of their inside of their treatment building, and just like before, none of this infrastructure under the consolidation scenarios, TUD would not be responsible to operate and maintain any of this. There's their in-ground tank. We have a few of those. Ours look a little better, but that concept was around when these things were being developed.
It hurts.
It's painful to look at.
Painful.
All right, so there's a few different flavors of consolidation that GHD looked at, but I'm just going to simplify it down into kind of three. The first is, in no specific order, is a northern alignment as shown here. And this is Jamestown Road, I should say. This is Jamestown Road. This is coming up into Racetrack. It's up off the screen here. We have a water main that ends approximately right here. If you know the Star Mobile Home Park, that area, we serve that. So under this scenario, you would extend a water main down Jamestown Road to a point in which there could be a new master meter here. And from this point forward, it would go along a property boundary, cross country, over to Peppermint Creek. The park would maintain, Harmony Communities would maintain responsibility for this, everything downstream of the master meter. Under that scenario, there's plenty of pressure, and they wouldn't need to pump in the park to serve that upper hydro zone. And they technically wouldn't need to keep their tank, that lovely in-ground reservoir, either. So, and under this scenario, because it's a master meter consolidation, all the billing, we would be billing one meter base and usage, and then the park would have to figure out how to bill all their residents.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I should know the answer, but will this water supply come from the Columbia or the Sonora system?
It would come from Columbia.
In this scenario.
This is, okay.
All right, so the southern route there's a number of ways we could get there, but the one that seemed the most feasible, although it has some challenges, is to come off Railbed Road, which is an area of low pressure, but there would be enough pressure to install up to a point where we would need to pump again. A water main up Rawhide Road onto Peppermint Creek Road, and then there would be a master meter at this location, and they would pump, that is the park, would pump up to, likely pump up to their tank, and then their system would essentially operate very similar to how it is right now. They may want to replace their tank, do something else, but instead of receiving raw water from the ditch, they would just receive treated water from TUD. And then the full consolidation, it could involve a northern alignment or a southern alignment, but it would also be replacement of all the distribution system and all the service laterals and all the meters, and the responsibility for all billing would then fall on TUD for each individual space park. In your staff report, Antonio made an estimate of the capacity charges which would need to be paid if there was a master meter or a full consolidation option, and they range from around $680,000 to $750,000, and then monthly billing is also estimated there.
And again, we don't know if these are all personally owned or rented. Mindy?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Are they personally owned mobile homes or rented?
I believe these are rented because Harmony, well, I actually don't know the answer to that. I know that Harmony Solutions is the owner. They're clearly not here today. So I'm not sure what the ownership split is for each mobile home.
Because that brings us back to what do we have to, if they don't pay their bill? If it goes totally on it.
I do know someone in there that does own the home and not the space, so.
That doesn't mean all of
It's
it.
probably,
Yeah, I don't know if
it's
it's all-
probably a mix, like all the.
No, it's not, it's all personally owned.
No, I know that, but
Yeah, but
for the most part, most of the parks are
rental is
usually a
rental.
mix.
So I will say for Peppermint, because Peppermint is owned by an owner who doesn't seem to have like the objective to change to a new ownership model, Peppermint is a really good candidate for a master meter, right? Take the master meter to the property, and then the owner of the park gets billed and they can figure out how to recuperate their cost. The real benefit for Sonora of full distribution system consolidation is that they are looking to change their ownership model. And so that could get really complicated for them in the future as they start going through that model, if they have to start figuring out like ownership of the water system as they're switching models. So the two parks are kind of on different pathways, which is why we look at both physical consolidation and master meter consolidation as options.
Are you through?
Done.
Any questions?
No, I think it's got basically the same ones as the first one.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna say ditto, ditto, ditto. I think once again, we're back to Jesse. The one for the old, rolling mobile home park, if we are to even begin to entertain doing the infrastructure in the park replacement and going to individual meters, I think we would need some sort of contract, written guarantee that they were moving immediately to make it be where each person in that park, each member in that park was gonna be an owner, so that we had something to attach if they decided they didn't wanna pay the water bill anymore. Because otherwise it's gonna be, you have nothing.
Essentially, what we need Jesse to do is figure out how we can protect our ratepayers
Right.
from, okay. Go work on that.
Anything more? And I guess about the only thing that, I know that we had no action here, but I guess about the only thing would be just to move forward on informing, having this discussion, informing the whole board and getting their input, so everybody's up to speed.
Did you hear that, Mindy? So I don't think for us, I don't think it's a rush, but we should get it to our board, both these items, and probably the next committee meeting too. But not a rush, but we'd sure like to have Mindy be available and the owners available, right?
And I think the other thing that should come out of this is that what we were talking about, you and I have been talking about for months, but what we were talking about just this morning is that we come up with a policy from here on out on how we move forward on possible consolidations with mobile home parks.
Yeah.
So we don't have to go through this each and every time.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's the hope, not to go through something each and every time, but I don't know, but you know, I'm
Who
just
knows?
used to, there's always a different scenario.
Right,
It's always, well, this was a little different because of.
But if we have at least a starting point.
Yeah. You know, I think, you know, for those that have been around a long time, we've seen this day coming where more and more of these sort of scenarios are gonna come to TED with the largest agency in this our part of Tuolumne County, where the utility of last resort we've been deemed. So I think it's good to have the conversations, maybe develop a policy and know how to move forward. But this is not the tip of the iceberg. It's not that, but there's more opportunities coming. We haven't really talked about another one we've been involved with, what's called the Tuolumne County water consolidation study, which is really centered around Sierra Pines. So that's a whole other thing. So
Right.
which has a mix of mobile home parks probably and residential, so and other systems. So lots to come. Yeah.
I mean, it's been our policy all along that we want to step up and try and help everybody, but we don't want to do it at the expense of our current ratepayers who already paid the price. I mean, why should we take on everybody else's mistakes and so on?
So, and thankfully, you know, Mindy's well aware of our feelings on that, and, you know, she represents us in that same vein, so, yeah, we just keep that in mind.
Great.
I can speak a little bit to schedule of our reports if that's helpful.
Sure.
So the Peppermint Creek final alternatives analysis report will be submitted at the end of June, so June 30th, and that will go to Eric and Dawn so they can distribute that as they need to. And then Sonora Estates, the draft of that report was just submitted a few weeks ago. And so Eric and Dawn will have the opportunity to comment on that draft, and then they give it back to us along with the other stakeholders. We incorporate the revisions that are requested, and then we'll go to final stage for that report. And I believe Sonora's final report is due at the end of August. And so there's a little bit of an offset between the two reports, but they go to Eric and Dawn. So TUD will have copies and will have had the opportunity to comment on both of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything more? Okay, well, I guess we can